This is episode 39 of the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast with industry leader Shannon Fable.
It's making sure that you hire and inspire the right team that's willing to embrace technology instead of saying, this is how we've always done it. Let's just keep doing it this way. And I think that's tough because a lot of group fitness managers, personal training managers as well, they don't get into this space from a traditional business background, so they may not have had to deal with technology. Making sure that when you're hiring for all these different management positions, that they have an aptitude, and even if it's not an aptitude, just an inclination to lean into technology rather than being scared by it.
Welcome to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast for club owners, operators, and fitness professionals. I am your host, Josh Trent, and this is your number one trusted resource for the accelerating world of fitness technology. Each week, we bring you an expert interview with a global influencer at the crossroads of fitness and technology. You'll gain the insights, tools, and inspiration you need to stay connected to the pulse of what matters most for your fitness business in the age of exponential technologies. On episode 39, we're taking an in-depth look at the current landscape to demystify these common misconceptions at the intersection of group fitness operations and technology solutions. The truth is, for an increasing number of group fitness managers in 2017, it's the growing demand to seamlessly tie in scheduling, communications, metrics, and substitution of fitness instructors through the cloud that's causing a major disruption in our industry. To help uncover what will be of most service to the industry's GroupX space, we're learning from the founder of GroupX Pro, Shannon Fable, an experienced business and program developer in the health and wellness space with over 20 years in the industry who specializes in group fitness operations. As you'll learn from Shannon, with all the fragmented offerings, types of classes, fitness instructors, number of studios, equipment fees, and other variables needed to run a successful GroupX program, we're identifying just how the landscape has changed so dramatically over the past 2 decades and why now the hardest part for operators is stepping back to look at the best tech solutions and what continuing education courses will really support their group fitness instructors. What are the core competencies for group fitness managers and instructors at this pivotal crossroads of technology, personality, and programming? The answer to that question and many more takeaways for operators, owners, and fit pros in this episode with Shannon Fable. Shannon Fable is an experienced business and program developer in the health and wellness space. With 20 plus years in the industry, she has presented and educated in 6 continents on group fitness, personal training, management, business development, and time management. With a proven track record for assessing needs and developing programs, systems, and a structure for a wide variety of businesses in the fitness industry, she's also carved out time to write, mentor, and star in over 25 fitness management-related DVDs. Thank you so much, Shannon, for coming on the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So you've been traveling a lot. We know that you're in San Diego recently. What's something in the space of demystifying our GroupX with tech that you can share with us right off the bat?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot about stress management and time management for group fitness, specifically for group fitness managers, as you mentioned, because what I find is, group fitness managers are kind of plucked out of the front row or plucked out of the group fitness arsenal because they either want, a better job, a more stable job. They've got the time, they've got the inclination. And so someone higher up identifies that they can do it, and they kind of toss them into a closet office and say, good luck with that, and off you go. And, many times group fitness managers have not been in the workforce before, so they may not have the skill set to know how to manage the day-to-day responsibilities of leading a team, still leading their classes, everything that upper management needs from, spreadsheets and reports and metrics and forecasting and customer service, with the stuff that they really love, which is actually teaching and motivating people. So I've been doing a lot of writing and a lot of lecturing in that space, stress management and time management for group fitness. And it does have a lot to do with tech, like figuring out how to manage your tech tools and let them help you streamline your processes so you can get back to the good stuff.
What's interesting too is we'll talk a little bit about your platform, GroupX Pro, later on, but you're married to a techie. Your focus is fitness. Can you tell us what that's like being married to someone with that tech focus?
Sure. He loves it. But then sometimes he's like, just forget that I'm the tech guy, because if you ask me to fix your computer one more time, I'm going to hurt someone or something. Just kidding. He's great. I think what's been really interesting is he's come along as a developer in the last 15 years, and we met working at Schwinn, and that's where he started working on websites and then later developing. And so what's been really neat is he knows the fitness side of things, but he has this deep knowledge of computers and technology and programming. And so, it's such a different conversation when he hears my struggles and my stress with my work in the fitness industry. He can come up with a solution. And I find that, I think we've talked about this before in the past, and I know I've talked about it with many of my friends. We have a lot of people in trying to infiltrate the fitness space that know technology, but maybe don't quite understand the nuances of what happens inside of clubs.
Yeah.
And so it's just been such a lovely thing. I mean, of course, we're husband and wife working together side by side, so it has its pluses and minuses, but really nice because we do get to have those deep conversations about, what the stresses are. And he has such a context and a knowledge of the industry that he can then, leverage his technical expertise to solve my problems. So it's been great. I'm really lucky.
You brought up such a great point too. We have a lot of device manufacturers and software platforms that are coming in because the barriers to entry, I believe, Shannon, have never been lower.
Yes.
People have exceptional expectations about what tech might deliver, but at the end of the day, we need to educate fitness professionals and teams about how they're going to use integrity and intention behind the technology. And on a previous call, you and I talked about this bridge between a club's vision and the technology they use. Let's dive right into this trepidation of club owners to try new things. What do you think a club owner needs to know from both a software perspective and a mindset so that they can actually move forward with a piece of technology that'll help them manage their teams?
Gosh, so many things, but I'll try to boil it down, distill it to 3. I think number 1 is knowing that any technology you decide to implement, it's going to slow you down before it speeds you up. And I think the fitness business is, and just like any business, right? It's so fast paced and fast moving that I think we just aren't set up. We aren't set up to have that slowdown. And so I think that makes them very, very nervous. So you've got to give yourself a good timeline. You've got to carve out space where people can work on the implementation of the project. We run into that with GroupX Pro all the time, group fitness managers or gym owners that are excited to add the product because they see the bells and whistles and what it can do, but then they don't want to take the time to slow down to actually learn how to use it and then train their team how to use it, and then get frustrated if it's frustrating once they get going, if that makes sense. So I think number 1 is just really making sure you project manage the time side of it and know you've got to slow down before you speed up. I think 2, being able to see past the dollar signs, because technology might not make you money back. It's the same thing with group fitness, right? We've had that fight for years and years and years. Like group fitness you have to spend money in group fitness to make money. And there's not a direct correlation to the dues. It's a dotted line that you've got to weave your way around and see what happens. The same thing with technology. Like again, GroupX Pro in particular, a lot of GFMs see right away how great it's going to be, but they have to convince the owner that by spending this much per month, this is how many hours it's going to save me, which then frees me up to do this job, which makes you money. So I think 1 is being able to see past just the dollars and cents, the immediate dollars and cents, and look a little bit further down the path. And then I think 3 is a deeper conversation. It's making sure that you hire and inspire the right team that's willing to embrace technology instead of saying, this is how we've always done it. Let's just keep doing it this way. And I think that's tough because, again, same story I told a moment ago. I think a lot of group fitness managers, personal training managers as well, they don't get into this space from a traditional business background, so they may not have had to deal with technology. And I know, the group fitness world is aging. I'm part of that aging population. And a lot of the managers are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And when we started group fitness, we ran it with, a file box on the stereo cabinet or next to the stereo cabinet with hanging file folders and a phone tree.
Yeah.
And, it worked. And we've had so many iterations of that. I think it's just making sure that when you're hiring for all these different management positions that they have an aptitude, and even if it's not an aptitude, just an inclination to lean into technology rather than being scared by it.
I love that you said we might slow down before we speed up.
Yeah.
What does that process look like? Because you travel to a lot of clubs, you interface with a lot of different styled programs. What slows them down in the beginning when they start integrating a new tech platform?
Well, I think it depends on the platform. So a lot of times, like maybe they're changing their front desk operating system, and you're going to have to port over your entire contact list, and maybe you're going to have to resegment it or retag it. It's a lot of back office work that someone's got to manage, and dotting I's and crossing T's in a hectic club environment is a little tough. For GroupX Pro specifically, it's just having the time to collect all of your data and then input it one time from start to finish. Versus, I know a lot of group fitness managers that only have 2 hours here, 2 hours there. They're very part time, so sometimes it's just carving out the time to find the information and sit down with a long stretch or a long period of time to input the information. But a lot of it's data entry, and it's also thinking. I think technology requires setting up technology, I should say, requires such an interesting skill set, because it's not just about being able to utilize the program. It's about being able to see the big picture and what you want to accomplish with the technology to then distill down to what you need to input to get to that output. And I think that is, it's not everyone's natural inclination. Like, people are typically in one camp or the other, right? They're really big thinkers, and they're developers, and they're creative people, and they go with their vision. And then you've got people that are the data entry, the real detail oriented, task minded project people.
Yeah.
And I think when you're working with technology, part of the slowdown is like, okay, what do we want the outcome of using this piece of software to be? And then if that's the outcome, what do I need to input to get to there? So I think that's the thing that really trips them up sometimes. We find that all the time onboarding with GroupX Pro, because on the surface, it seems like a really simple system where it's just your contacts and it's your schedule and it's your timetable and your subsystem. But you have to know, okay, well, is this going to interface with members? How do I want it to interface with members? How do I want them to be able to sort the information? And so just taking some of that time to sit down and plot it out and give yourself permission to have a couple different iterations before you commit to it. Because the worst thing is when you input stuff into technology and then it's wrong or it doesn't work or it's not what you needed. So
it takes away from using the tool itself at that point.
Absolutely. And then you just get frustrated with it and tend to go back to your old ways. But yeah, so just taking the time to really think about what you want the output to be to figure out the input.
This is so great, Shannon. This is a common theme we've heard from many guests on the show. And I want to talk to you about GroupX Pro more in just a minute. But this demystification of GroupX with your travels, with the conversations you have with fitness leaders, what is some misconceptions right now as to why club owners and operators, and specifically GroupX managers, have a little bit of hesitancy in making any changes whatsoever?
Gosh, that is a loaded question, isn't it? I think because the evolution of group fitness has been, it seems very fast when I look back at the last 20 years, but the changes have been slow. And if you've been at the forefront of those changes, maybe this is a really bad analogy, but I feel like sometimes if people gain weight over time and it's only like 10 to 15 pounds and it's 1 or 2 pounds here, you're so in your skin every single day that you might not actually notice until it's too late to turn around, and then you have to make drastic changes to figure it out. I think that's the same thing happening with group fitness, because if I look back 20 years ago, we had one format, maybe two, and we had one studio. So managing group fitness was very linear. You hired X number of instructors to cover X number of time slots, and every club looked very, very similar. And you fast forward to today, and the offerings are so fragmented. The types of group fitness instructors are so fragmented. The number of studios is so fragmented. The equipment you use or choose not to use is fragmented. Whether you charge for it, whether you don't, whether some classes are charged for it. The landscape has changed so dramatically in 20 years that I think the tough part is we're still operating like it's that one trick pony where it's one studio, one format, one type of instructor, because the same people are leading the industry, if that makes sense. Yeah. And it really takes us stepping back. Like, I just had this conversation with Ace the other day about, what would be the best continuing education course to give to a GFI after they take the test? And it was really we were stumped because there is nothing universal. So I know that doesn't quite answer your question, but I just think so much has changed, but we're still trying to lead it the way that we did because we still have the same people in leadership. And I think we're just ripe for disruption right now, and not disruption in programming or the ways that we teach, but ripe for disruption in the way that we train group fitness instructors, the way that we manage them, and what our expectations of group fitness instructors might be. I think we're just ripe for disruption. And I think that's really unsettling to a lot of people because, the people that started this industry are still in it and still, we're still doing really, really good work, but it's time for some new ideas to come out because group fitness is just, it's not like personal training. We haven't just evolved the way that we do it. The whole landscape of it has changed. I think it's scary.
It's such a great point too, Shannon, because on a previous call, you had mentioned core competency. It's a very big deal that trainers and managers of large groups have a very clear vision of what they want to achieve, why they want to achieve it, and what their core competencies are. Can you tell us about that? And why is that so important when even selecting technology? How does that relate to their core competencies?
Sure. I think, that's a great point. Exactly. We were just talking about the core competencies of group fitness. It's to motivate and inspire people in groups. And that comes in so many different shapes and sizes. So I think first it's remembering that, it is not black and white. Like personal training core competencies is pretty black and white. You have to program for people, whether in groups, individuals, small groups, large groups, for cardio, strength, flexibility. Like you are working them out from start to finish and you're planning that all out for them, and you have to have knowledge of nutrition. Where I think group fitness has become just a little bit more organic. If you distill it down, it truly is about motivating and inspiring people to move, bottom line.
Yeah.
So when we look at what are the core competencies that make that happen, and this is where I'll probably get hate mail after this. I don't know that, core competency for sure for group fitness is knowing the body and how it works. But I think the other side to that very important coin that's equally important is how they interact, connect, and communicate with customers. And we need to do a better job of ensuring that both of those things are heralded and that we know how to train both of those things. Because, you can know everything in the world about the body and how to move and music and everything else. But if we are not hiring, training, and celebrating people's ability to communicate and connect, then we cannot motivate them to move. And it's so important. I think I mentioned to you on our phone call, I used to run away from the fact that I am not an exercise science major. And being in the education side of the industry, I used to be embarrassed by that. And then I realized, well, I'm not claiming to be. I don't teach people how to do the exercise science part of exercise. I use my sociology and my communication degrees to teach people how to thrive in a group environment. So I think that's just been the difference of how I've led groups in the past is, yeah, for sure, the exercise is so important. But I think one of the core competencies truly is that, that thing that you can't quite put your finger on, but the communication and connection piece. And, when it comes to technology, then group fitness technology is very different. It needs to look at metrics. It needs to track numbers. It needs to track penetration. It needs to track, all that good stuff that we can show to upper management to prove our worth, so to speak. But the thing that group fitness software needs to do that I think is so missing for that flip side of the coin that we're talking about is it has to connect the team members. And I know that sounds really odd, but I think for so long we truly have managed group fitness as these individual talents, and we trust that they're good at their craft and they're going to be able to do what they need to do to motivate people. But we forget that part of that motivation is making sure that they're actually a team and that they don't just cooperate with one another.
Right.
Right? Because that's what's happening in the studios right now, right? Why do people go to boutiques and bypass the mid-tier club?
They're craving that connection.
They want the connection. And you cannot, and this is going to sound horrible, like if you teach for me, I certainly want you to connect to your members, but I need you to connect in a bigger way than just Josh to the 20 people that love him on Monday at 5:30. I need you to be connected to the team members, know what their strengths and weaknesses are, and be able to, promote them to the people in class on Monday. Because if my job is to, as the manager, is to motivate people to move, then I need to make sure that if Josh is not there, that they'll still move. So when I look at, group fitness software, it's got to be a way for group fitness managers to get their teams to connect, and not just connect with, can you sub for me, Josh, but I want you to actually talk to one another. And I can't force that. Like, gone are the days that you need to have that quarterly potluck meeting so that people come. You're bribing them with food. The mandatory meeting on a Sunday afternoon that nobody wants to show up to. You need to do this on an ongoing basis. And it can't just be a weekly email that's like a pat, slap, pat sandwich, right? Here's what I love about you guys. Oh, don't forget about the microphone. And I love you. You need daily interaction with folks. So I think that truly is the missing piece of what's happening in group fitness right now. And if we want them to connect to the people in their classes, we've got to connect them to one another and their community.
And I think what you're talking about is this is a segment within a segment. I mean, group fitness instructors, the GroupX world, a lot of people don't know this. Sometimes they think of group fitness as, oh yeah, everyone works for the club. The majority of group fitness instructors are independent contractors. And so what you're talking about, where people can be connected and still have the pulse of the club, that can be a challenge. How do you feel like GroupX Pro ties this in together? I think the big difference when I look at your space online and looking at your website is built by GroupX instructors and managers for GroupX managers and instructors.
Absolutely. It started, again, going back to my husband, like I came home from work one day and I was about to pull my hair out. And it was because I was having a hard time, one, ensuring that people were getting my communication. And that was extremely frustrating because, no matter how part-time you are, how independent you are, you still work for the club, right? You still have a responsibility to know what's happening in the club because you are the mouthpiece for most members. And I was getting really frustrated because no matter what I did, I didn't know if my 37 instructors that they all got the same message. So that was frustrating. And then second, death to group fitness is the no-show. Members coming into a class and nobody being there to teach. And, during the summer, the subbing situation is just so crazy. And we can't get rid of it. People are not full-time for the most part. They're moms and they're traveling during the summer. Their kids are off school. But I needed a way to figure out the subbing piece that would give me peace of mind and everyone else peace of mind. And my husband listening to my frustrations is like, oh, we could totally solve that. So it came out of those two things. And then parallel with that, I had already been writing and doing a lot of lecturing about group fitness management and this whole concept of, team is not just cooperating and making sure classes are subbed and taken care of. It truly is about understanding, the sum is better than the individual parts, and everyone needs to be equal on a team. You can't have divas on a team. And I know some group fitness managers don't agree with that. They feel like they need their rock stars. But I come from the space of, I want people to join my gym for my programming, not for the personalities. Because my job, again, is to get people moving. And if they fall in love with your personality and you leave, then I've lost what I needed to do, which is make you move. So long, short, it was created by me, lots of input with group fitness managers and instructors with the goal to streamline communication for peace of mind and ease of tracking, but also to be able to create a community within your team. Because you may have a group fitness team that some of the instructors may not even know that someone else is an instructor because one of them teaches at 6 a.m. on Monday and the other one only teaches every other Saturday. So how do you foster that connection? I wanted to find a really easy way to do that. And it seemed like, online was where people were going, is when Facebook was starting to be really prevalent. And so we strive to meet people where they are, and that's on their phones and on their computers. We want to be sympathetic and empathetic, I guess I should say, to the fact that they're on the go and they don't want to read long, lengthy emails. They don't want to come to meetings. They don't want to have to be in the club every day. So how can we honor that and still get the best out of it for the best of the members?
Going to your article here that was published in Club Industry, we'll link this in our show notes today. Should your fitness studio be dependent on personalities or programs? I think both, Shannon, but tell us what you wrote in this article and how technology and software ties in.
Yeah, of course, I'll preface it with this. I think the personalities in group fitness are extremely important. You need to have different radio stations in your club, right? Like I know over my 20 years, my personality has changed based on my stage of life. So when I started teaching, I didn't want to have anything to do with the 9 a.m. ladies because they drove me crazy. I didn't have kids. I didn't get it. I didn't understand what a carpool was or why you needed it or how hard your life must be after birthing a human. But fast forward, I'm in my 40s now with a kid. I would much rather teach 9 a.m. ladies than the college kids that come in at nighttime, 6:30, 7:30 at night, where I used to love teaching at 8:30, 9:30 at night. So I do think that you need different types of personalities. But when I say your club should be program dependent versus personality dependent, you can't build a solid group fitness program around lots of different individuals and individual strengths. You need people to crave what you have to offer and then find their time slot or their person that they mesh with a little bit more. So a great example might be, let's say you've got a club and every instructor has their own special class they teach. Josh, you teach, jumping jack Josh's Friday Fantastic Fun.
Wow, that sounds like a fun class.
Doesn't it? Right?
Yeah.
But you're the only one that knows it. And you pull out all the stops and you bring them treats and you let them choose their music and you give them money at the end of class, whatever you're doing to make them love you. And then you've got someone else that teaches, Mindy's Muffin Melt Off Mondays, and she's got her own way of making them love her. And then all of a sudden, like this group of people that loves Mindy on Monday and Josh on Friday, they don't really have any other opportunities or options. Or, I rule my life by the bumper sticker, conflict is when expectation doesn't meet reality. If I think what Mindy is doing is what's supposed to happen in every fitness class, and then I go to another one and that's not quite how it goes down, then the experience is ruined. So I go back to the whole thing about studios. I mean, why is Orange Theory killing it? They're killing it because it is a known commodity. Yeah, when I go to Orange Theory here in Boulder, there are some instructors that I jive with better than others based on their personality. But if I need to go to Wednesday's class, who may not be my favorite instructor, I still go because I know I'm going to get the same exact end result. It's the same feeling. It's the same experience. Might not be, the same personality, but it's the same end product. And I think, I go back to what I said earlier. In 20 years, group fitness has become so fragmented, not just with individuals, but how people approach and what equipment we use and workouts we teach, that I think it really is screwed with the consumer because they don't know what they're supposed to be looking for when they go in. And if they, the worst and best thing is they find one person they love, they get so hooked on this one person that then, like if that person's on sabbatical for 2 weeks, they just don't come and work out.
Sure.
So it's more about leveling the playing field to ensure that the customer has a good experience and wants to and needs to come more often during the week. It's not that I don't want them to fall in love with you, but I want them to fall in love with the programming first and then have their favorite personalities underneath that, if that makes sense.
What I'm hearing from you is that there's the product that needs to be delivered, that gets to get out there, and it's consistent programming that meets and excites members at their deepest needs. So we have a lot of things that get in the way of that: schedules, moms leaving, instructors leaving. Your platform, there's 4 key segments. One of them is subbing. The next one is scheduling, but then there's also communication and metrics. Do you feel like communication, subs, scheduling, and metrics are the most important for?
That's it. Yeah, there's a space for communication, and we divide that up into 2 places because what I found when I was using email as communication with GroupX Pro is I would send out something that was very, very important, that was a need to know. So I call that business. And then someone would hijack my email and hit reply all. And then it became and we're doing happy hour on Friday. So you had the business and pleasure side that sometimes then if nobody, you're always going to have an instructor that, right, is like a Wall Street banker or something and teaches one cycling class every other week. They don't want to deal with the BS that sometimes starts happening with people that, use this as a social outlet as well. So on GroupX Pro, the communication side, we very distinctly separate business from pleasure. So the business side, this is where the managers are the ones that direct this information. Instructors can comment on it, ask for clarification, and indicate that they've read it, got it, listened. And so it's clean and you can archive it. Then on the other side, we have a section where it's a free-for-all. Your instructors can start posts and ask, it kind of becomes the Craigslist for your team, whether that's I need some ideas for this or I need ideas for that, the class plan section as well. So we separate those 2. Then the subbing section, I mean, of course, this is a huge need for every group fitness team, but it makes it a really seamless process where, Josh, you raise your hand and say, I need help with my Friday jumping jack class. I raise my hand and say, I can do it. someone else raises their hand and says they can do it, manager makes the best choice instead of first come, first serve, always getting it, which tends to downplay that community feeling we were talking before, right? Because you may feel like you always get left out because you never get chosen and you don't really know why you didn't get chosen, but it's because you don't have an itchy BlackBerry finger, right? So I love that part of it. And then once the manager says yes, everyone gets communicated with at the same exact time because an automatic email goes to everyone that was involved in that subbing situation, and the members get to know because the schedule is updated real time. So the scheduling interfaces with that. And then, the schedule, we need to be certain that we are providing a real time schedule to members, because gone are the days that they want to have a monthly calendar posted on their fridge that may or may not be right. And gone are the days that you can have a monthly calendar that doesn't change. I mean, we are a very fluid part of the fitness industry. And then, like I said, the final one is metrics. And I think group fitness managers need to, if they're not already, paying more attention to that and really watching the trends so that we can make smarter choices about our programming and how to support our instructors to help make them better, make their lives better, make the experience more enjoyable. But metrics such as, allowing them to do their class numbers on their phone rather than a public sign-in sheet on top of the stereo where sometimes our ego gets in the way.
This is such a great point, because I think a lot of us can see the GroupX program in a club. It's a club within a club. It's a very special environment. You actually had a case study from the YMCA Twin Cities. Can you tell us briefly, what were the benefits they received from yourself, your guidance, and GroupX Pro?
Yeah, so the YMCA's of the Twin Cities, one of our first customers, and Sean Levesque, who was there then, has since moved on, but we became very good friends during the process. And a couple things that he mentioned to me along the way. Number one, the validity of his class numbers. And he was managing 27 clubs, so I can't even imagine. Wow. But the validity of his class numbers went up because all of a sudden that stress of, oh my gosh, Josh taught yesterday and had 25 people in cycling, and I taught today and I only have 10. Ooh. And if I can see that, I mean, why am I going to write down 10? Like it's embarrassing. And there may be a slew of factors that made my class have 10 that have nothing to do with me. Yeah. But instructors get paid by ego strokes. And you have to be so vulnerable to actually write down numbers when they're not great. So he did notice that once it became private, and you were entering your numbers on your own on a device, and the only person that could see them were you and the manager, then the numbers started to become more reflective of what was actually happening in the club. So then he could make better decisions and help people. So if he did start to see a trend that, maybe the 10 was about me, he could help fix that versus not seeing it till it was too late, right? That was number one. And number two, he was able to get rid of these pointless meetings that just frustrated people. The busy corporate worker that was teaching one class at the YMCA that didn't want to come in every 12 weeks on a Sunday afternoon to hear all the things that had happened in 12 weeks. Because people, things change very, very quickly. So he found that if he could drip out information very, very quickly, people paid attention more, because it wasn't this long email with 17 bullet points. It was, hey, stereo's on the fritz. There's a portable boombox in my office. Make sure you bring it out. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't included with, oh, and by the way, daycare fees are going up by $2. Everything had its place. So it was much easier to organize. So he ended up getting more, compliance with reading and being in the know of what was happening in their clubs, which was extremely beneficial. And finally, the members, back when we started this, it was a pretty lofty goal to say, hey, you don't need that paper calendar anymore, your paper schedule anymore, because people were still like deep in the paper schedule that, the font was like 8 and you couldn't read anything on the back, and it, folded out to an 11 by 17 sheet of paper. It was pretty lofty to say, hey, ditch that, but he went for it. And what he found was because GroupX Pro interfaces with your website, and it can interface with your Facebook and an app and display the same schedule in all three places, but only having to input in one place. And it's always real time, right? So what he found is once members started to trust the process of looking for it online, especially Facebook later, and once they knew that it was always up to date, even if a sub was last minute, it was always up to date. Then, and his marketing team loved this, people were going back to their website. Because what you said was it's so apropos. Like, it's a club within a club.
Yeah.
And if you need to talk to people, you need to be in front of them in a Group X class. Well, most people weren't going to the website to look at a schedule 5, 6, 7 years ago, right? They had the schedule at home on their sheet of paper. Well, when Sean started forcing them to be on the website, because most people don't go back to your club website at all, because it's more usually, speaks to the needs of the new member or trying to acquire members. So they didn't find it. But now that they were on it and it was dynamic, they started getting more traffic on their website and on their Facebook page. So they were able to push out information to members a lot better because they were looking at it on a daily basis instead of on a monthly basis to see what was going on at the Y.
Consistency is the key in everything. And whether it is scheduling, management, or looking at data, this is the most important thing. And I've heard from you and felt from you so much in our conversation. Shannon, this is the last part of the show. I didn't tell you. It's 6 fast questions. Are you ready?
I think I am.
What does the future look like for you in Group X?
Oh my gosh, just continue to watch what a wild and crazy ride we're on and see the diversification so we can get more people moving.
Bedros Keuilian has mentioned that for a lot of fitness pros and group fitness programs, marketing is almost the same value as the program quality itself. How important is marketing and niche programming offerings for Group X?
Interesting. I believe that marketing doesn't get you clients. It just gets you awareness. And if you can have a really good awareness campaign to drive them in, the second part of that, though, is you have to deliver on your promise. So that goes back to the community thing. But I think it's extremely important to get your whole team enrolled in helping you spread that awareness.
What types of programs in Group X that use wearables do you see coming to fruition in the next couple of years?
Gosh, I think any kind of display training is extremely important in gamifying it. Now, not making sure that there's always a clear-cut winner and loser, because some of the competitions in fitness aren't quite fair, speaking from experience. But I think being able to, display people's data and making the use of that data, or allowing the data to make the taking of the class or the participation in class enriched and easier to follow, easier to do, more fun, more interesting. And then that being ported back to your phone or to your Apple Watch or to whatever device you have. I think people love that connection between what's happening in the club and what's happening on their personal devices.
What's been one of the most successful programs that you've seen implement data, whether it's outside steps that the member is doing or their data that they've used while they've been in a Group X class in the club? Do you see anything coming together with outside club member activity data and inside the club Group X program activity data?
Sure. I mean, I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're looking for, but I think what Orange Theory is doing with data is amazing. It's amazing. People are so in love with watching their numbers and collecting splat points and getting that ported back to their phone. And I think a group to watch right now is Stages Flight. I think they're doing cycling display really, really differently, and it's really interesting. Exactly, we talk about porting the data back to something that you can use at home. So I'd say watch for that. It's really interesting.
If a Group X manager is currently feeling overwhelmed in this moment, you've talked about some great things today, but if there was one piece of advice you could give them that would give them a little bit of relief, what would that be?
Manage your inputs so you don't have as many outputs. And by that, I mean, I think there are so many ways. I live my life by the work of David Allen, Getting Things Done, and he talks a lot about the input-output phenomenon. I think there's so many ways for people to reach you, that if you allow people to reach you in a million different ways to communicate with you as the leader, if you allow for them to communicate in their language, then you are expected to turn around and reach back out to them in that way. And all of a sudden, you're connecting with instructors via Facebook Messenger, Twitter, text, phone, etc. You have got to decide where your central location for communication is, and then get everyone enrolled in using that platform so your life can just be a lot easier with all your info in one place.
Shannon, last question. What are you most optimistic about for the future as we look at this intersection of tech and fitness?
I think technology is just putting a jolt of energy back into fitness, because for so long we were exercising with no connection to what it actually was doing, unless it was, calories or heart rate. And not everyone is wowed by those two pieces of information. So now there's just so many more things, whether it's how much you're standing during the day or how many active calories you're getting or how many steps you're taking. I think it just allows everyone to get in on the fitness game and feel successful even if you're not an athlete or at the top of your fitness game. So it allows them to see their small wins along the way. And that's what's going to keep people in the game. And that's what we need.
We can learn more about you at shannonfable.com. Also for GroupX Pro, it's groupxpro.com. We talk so much, Shannon, about the demystification of GroupX and what GroupX really means to the fitness space for the future. Is there anything we missed when you look at this demystification of GroupX?
I think the biggest thing I would hope that people do, whether they're inside of group fitness or they're not, is to take another look at what group fitness can be. I think some people still picture it as that 1990s, grapevining with a thong leotard on, and it has come so far. We do so many different things, and we touch so many lives inside and outside of the club. Whether people are teaching in a club or, they're working with other organizations outside of the traditional health club model, group fitness people, they can move mountains. They truly are the ones that can get people moving in a big way, like mass scale.
Yeah.
And I wish people would just see that, they don't need to be exercise physiologists to do it well and motivate people to move. And we just need to get people moving.
Shannon Fable, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Shannon believes that the tech barriers to entry in the fitness industry have never been lower. But at the end of the day, we must educate fit pros and teams about how they're going to use integrity and intention behind the technology tools. No matter what SaaS solution a club deploys, it's essential for leadership to focus on the outcome and ask, what do we need to do in the onboarding process and in training to truly get the outcome we want? From 20 years of working in GroupX, Shannon teaches operators to first hire and inspire the right team that's willing to embrace technology instead of saying, this is how we've always done it and let's keep doing it this way. The core competencies of group fitness is ultimately to motivate and inspire people in groups to move more and more often. And the use of cloud-based fitness tech solutions helps to support this powerful core competency by increasing communication, gamification, and engagement to our members that need it most. Thank you for listening to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. Here's a quick message from Brian O'Rourke.
Hello, everyone. This is Brian O'Rourke. Thanks for listening to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast with Josh and all of our fantastic guests. Look, we have done almost 40 of these podcasts to date, and there will be many more to come. And what surprises me is I hear from leaders in the fitness industry across the world all the time about how much they enjoy this content. Don't you want your brand, your service, your product in the fitness industry to be featured on this podcast? I would. And so please, check with us in the show notes, get some information, become a sponsor. Let's help this podcast grow to serve the industry around the world. Thanks very much for listening.